And so, but here would be the pushback to that though, right? Which is, and I actually want to know, I'm assuming you're not a tech guy here. How much effort, what you just described sounds quite the build out. And so if you were advising somebody today, such as me, like if I wanted to replicate at least close enough to what you're doing, how much effort is that? And how did you, I mean, did you just hire people to do it, or was it did you do it over a long period of time? How would that go?
I did it myself.
You
So
did? Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah. Um, you need to at minimum have like an ability to do some systems thinking of like
Mm-hmm.
what are the steps that you need to go from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that, then I don't think like Zapier, like I think most people can probably teach themselves how to use Zapier, at least for basic stuff.
Yeah.
Um, uh, without too much of a learning curve. Um, I like I as a kid, I did like basic programming, like visual basic programming, as like a kind of a side hobby, and sold programs on AOL. I'm dating myself, but like then I tried to learn C++ and just totally fucking failed at that. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. Totally failed at that, and so I'm like, I'm technical, but up to a point. And so Zapier and no code tools are great for that. And then I'm dangerous enough on the coding side where I can go to Claude and have it generate Python code for me, and I can plug it into Zapier and do some custom stuff that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do just through Zapier alone. And like I can fix it and kind of tweak it a little bit. But I'm not a coder in the end. But this kind of stuff has been essential to like getting to the other side of the business, because to me, you want to be putting as much effort and resources into the content side and the audience generating side,
Exactly.
and everything else like that beyond that is a expense that you could or an expense or a time sink that like you should be looking to trim, because the fundamental thing when you have an advertising business is the eyeballs that come, and editorial to me is like the hardest thing to get right, but the most essential. So to answer your question though, I've built this out over the course of a few years, and nights and weekends mostly, but have definitely invested a lot of time into it. But to me, that pays dividends in terms of the things we're able to do. Like I'd need to almost double my staff to do everything we automate in a manual way.
And so the way I would think about that, because I've played with these tools, I'm not very good at them, but I know pretty much about them. And it sounds overwhelming because there's so many pieces, but each piece in and of itself is not that big of a deal, right? So it's just doing a lot of little steps that are all pretty easy, essentially.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. Like find the lowest hanging fruit. Find the thing that you're just like doing over and over again, and wouldn't be too hard to automate through a no code tool, and like start with that. And then find the next thing and find the next thing. One issue that I have is that we have a bunch of interlinked automations. For instance, the automation that takes something from our site, puts it into Airtable, and then from Airtable, it goes to the newsletter. Well, those are two different automations. And sometimes if you're trying to change something, or like an app gets updated, it could break something in the chain, and then you have to go back and figure out what happened, and it's complex. And so you do need to maintain this over time. It's not set it and forget it, but in my mind, it's well worth it in terms of how it enables you to level up what you're doing in very meaningful ways without increasing your cost or headcount.
Yeah. And the more, Zapier, I think they do have AI automations too, but and again, you've already got your system, but just for people listening, I haven't started doing this yet, but I know enough really smart people that N8N is a really powerful tool that's similar to Zapier, just basically AI first. There's a bunch of others that have come out now, like Gumloop and what's the other one? I forget. But anyway, there's even more powerful tools with the AI side, and now there's MCP is coming out, which is going to make it easier for tools to talk to each other. So that whole problem of things breaking shouldn't be as big of an issue, because now you've got AI, the ability to talk to each other, not use APIs. But anyway, this is a tech thing that I know a little bit about, not enough.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In looking for your tech tools, make sure that you have the ability to, through APIs to or through extensions or whatever, to interface with them. So, we
Hmm.
use a plugin called the Uncanny Automator in WordPress that allows us to like take anytime an article is published, it calls a webhook, it goes to Zapier. Anytime we need to like put a new sponsored post or something that comes in through a form onto WordPress, it goes through a webhook onto WordPress. WordPress is an open platform and
Hmm.
has all these tools that allow you to do that. And again, this is why I picked MailChimp, but look for that in your tools that it has a pretty robust ability to communicate.
Yes.
If there's some very cool tools out there, on the newer side, some of them have those kind of endpoints and can work with Zapier and other no-code tools. Others are not as robust, and I think that's a consideration if you're going to go this route. Is in terms of what you're working with, they
Yeah.
should be interoperable.
Agreed. I would just say that the one of the tools that I'm looking at that I know somebody doing things similar to you is he's using Ghost. So Ghost is like a blogging slash email platform that I know is quite open because again, almost everything you're saying he's doing in some capacity. So that's another one potentially for people to look at. Okay, tell me about acquisition. So again, you are coming from this as website first to newsletter. You're getting millions of views. First of all, like how many subscribers do you have, I guess, on the newsletter side, and then how are you getting readers? I know you've built up all this trust and everything for so long, but just tell me more about getting more eyeballs in whatever capacity.
We have about 45,000 subscribers across our 3 owned sites. I'm looking to bump up those numbers. Um, uh, Hopefully around to about 50,000. We're going to start a paid campaign soon.
So
Um,
real quick, yeah, on the for the 45,000, was that paid or not paid or a combination?
Most of it is organic. We
Organic.
have
Okay.
run paid campaigns in the past, lead ads. Like way back in the day, we were running lead ads shortly after it came out. I'm like, oh, this is a great way this is before I like, I knew of anybody else advocating for this. I'm like, oh, this could be a way to grow our email newsletter. And I put like $1,000 towards it and, got like 25 cents per subscriber and was like, okay, that's enough. And
Yeah.
now I'm just kicking myself for not just going ham on that from the get go and just like investing, like taking out a loan and doing it. That being said, some of the lead ad subscribers you get, at least at this point, I didn't really look closely at them early on, but now it's like they skew older, they're not quite as engaged. So I think it has a place, but you also need people finding you organically. You need the combination. We've plateaued a bit just because we've been in market so long. Um, so that's one of the reasons we're going out with the paid campaign. Hopefully we're getting people who might have moved to the area recently or whatever. And so we do paid periodically, but I'm trying to get it up to 50,000. Here's the problem with MailChimp, since this is an email
Yeah. Yeah.
newsletter focused podcast. My problem with MailChimp is I'm on a legacy campaign where we have unlimited sends. Because MailChimp is so marketing focused, they limit the number of monthly emails you send. And if we were to break through, I think it's 52,000. If we were to break through that number in terms of active subscribers, we would have to go to like get off our legacy plan, go to the new one, which we send email newsletters every day. So it would like double or triple our cost. So we have this sort of weird cap on our subscriber numbers where, if we're going to go through it, we really need to go through it. This is where I think a beehive has advantages, is that it's meant for media. They're not telling you can only send 15 emails or 12 emails a month, which is nonsense. It makes sense in a marketing standpoint. MailChimp, they don't care about the media use case. It's small potatoes for them, and the fact that Beehive is all about that makes me intrigued to go over there. But again, MailChimp's working right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to get those numbers up. Um, Paid, I think, has a role, but you need the organic base because those are our best subscribers, the people who have been with us for years and open it every day.
Mhm. So so I get the general thesis here. Yeah, do more organic, create the whole create great content. but how, again, maybe this just comes back to when you were doing this was the golden age of media, right? When Facebook, I guess, sadly I wasn't around at the time, but I hear about this all the time, that sending traffic, very frequently for basically free or dirt cheap is like, how did you get eyeballs in the first place? Like doesn't matter how great your content is unless people somehow know about it to find it. So where are they finding it?
Oh man, like back when we started, when I like it was just my friends. Like I just like told my friends about it, and then um, we grew in these kind of spurts by having breaking news that people were either going like viral-ish on social, or were just things people were searching on Google and no one else was reporting on it. Like big fire somewhere. Or actually, we had a bunch of big snowstorms early on that helped too. So what happened was people would discover us through these big stories, and then some subset of them would follow us, bookmark our site. People bookmark sites back in the day, add us to their RSS reader. And that kind of behavior just isn't as prevalent now. You have more intermediation by these algorithmic, Facebooks and Googles and socials of the world. And as a result, you don't have the kind of somewhat linear growth that you can see of, I just got 1,000 people to my site and 50 of them are now following us, and directly. This is where the email newsletter comes in, is like, okay, and why I think it's great for early growth is because it's the best channel to get people coming back, again and again, and to reach them without the algorithms getting in your way. So, if I were starting a site right now, I would absolutely make it email first.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question is like, okay, at what point do you flip the switch and add all sorts of operational uh, uh, complexity to your business by, and this makes more things more complex when you have the website and you need to publish on the website
Mm-hmm.
and direct traffic there and put out the socials. At what point do you flip that switch from growing the email newsletter to, okay, now we have a site, we're directing more readership to our site as you've described recently. I think that just rough numbers, probably for me, it's like when you cross 10,000 like legit subscribers. If you have 10,000 plus subscribers and 50 plus open rates, I think you probably have enough to start making a go of it on the web. Or if you cross like the 100 to 200,000 revenue range, I'd probably use one of those as a marker.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for sure, like newsletter is a great way to grow. Absolutely, absolutely key to making this work. But to me, you need to get to the other channels at some point if you want to continue to grow.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally right. And again, that's how I think we met. I posted about how I'm using Beehive's full website builder, which again, it's still new. You have to be on their high paid plan for now, but it looks really nice. But I think, again, coming back to this whole conversation, and I think is super interesting about the way you do things versus the way most people are doing things now, is the trade-off of what you can do when it's under your control, like such as WordPress and Open and MailChimp and APIs, versus a system like Beehive. One of the things I'm running into now is I'm actually getting what I think is pretty good traffic already, even though I started this like a week ago. We've had a big controversy in town, which has certainly helped. And now where's my brain is going to, like, how can I monetize on the site? And so, and I haven't dug into it yet. So if I'm wrong, it's possible. But I asked somebody who thought the Beehive doesn't allow for the, what do you say, like the programmatic ads, right? So I'm getting this traffic, but I can't do that, right? And that's because I'm just using a system that Beehive controls. I don't get to do it the way if it was Zapier and WordPress and whatnot. So trade-offs, right? Everything is trade-offs.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the programmatic side, I think with a pretty optimized but not overly optimized programmatic stack, or programmatic provider, you can get $5 to $10, per thousand overall in revenue just from the programmatic side. And so, if you're doing 1 million page views a month, you're talking somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 in
Hmm.
programmatic revenue alone. That'll fund a full, editorial employee.
Hmm.
Um, and that was a big unlock for us. I didn't have programmatic for a while,
Hmm.
probably up until the mid to late 2010s. And looking back, I'm like, why in the world did I not do that? It
Hmm.
really enabled us to grow in a way that what we were holding ourselves back by not doing that. And the issue, if you go with a some sort of hosting where you're constrained by what they tell you can do on that hosting platform, I'm not sure what the Beehive one is. I haven't looked into that, but for instance, there's actually a variation of WordPress called Newspack, and Newspack tells you what kind of, or at least last time I checked, what kind of programmatic advertising you can and cannot put on your site. When you give up that kind of control, you give up potential opportunities for
Yeah,
revenue.
that's
Um,
why we're here, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
So, I think you want something that you can control and make the right decisions for your business and your audience. And certainly a right decision is diversifying your revenue and getting every stream that's not going to, every reasonable stream of revenue. I'm not putting the
Yep.
content recommendation trash stuff on the bottom of my articles, no matter how much they pay. That's just
Hmm.
like a choice I made. Um, but, some branded programmatic ads up at the top that convert pretty well. To me, that's well worth it
Yeah.
for the cost of the price of being able to grow your editorial and serve your readers better.
Yeah. Totally. All right, last topic I want to get at, because I think again you're basically doing the kinds of things I want to do, except you're ahead of me. So tell me about this as much as you can about this model of, um, partner, or what some people. I just did an episode yesterday with somebody doing newsletter, local newsletter as a service. Again, I think there's a lot of different angles to hit at this. We're doing it differently from the guy that I talked to. So curious how you do it or how you think about this concept, because what I'm thinking is, and sounds like your people you're working with, people starting, or especially now, are starting to see the value of this model, especially business owners. This is a secondary business for them, but they don't know how to do it, like technologically, and B, they, even if they did, they don't want to because they got another business, right? So there's an opportunity there for somebody to say, hey, I have the expertise on how to do this all on the back end. Let me do that for you. And I'm working on, I've got 2 of those right now, and I'm working on hopefully getting some more. But I'm curious how that's going with you and how you think about it, business wise.
So this has come about, somewhat organically, in that it's just been a logical next step for myself and the people we partner with. So the first one, it was with a site that operates in DC, in the District of Columbia, called Popville. And I had been kind of in touch with Dan, the guy who runs that, for a while. This was years back at this point. And he had someone else doing this for him. He had another outfit out of New York that was like selling his ads and hosting his site. But they just they weren't doing it in a smart way. They were trying to squeeze too much money out of local businesses, and as a result, they were churning their clients too much and under monetizing. And so, I just kind of had a conversation with them over beers a few times, and eventually the idea came up of like, hey, we could probably do this for you. Like, we already have the capacity. We could just add you onto our server. We could just, we have people selling, and some of our advertisers probably want to advertise, in DC as well. And the thesis turned out to be very correct, and we were able to, more than double his revenue. Our advertisers were happier because they could reach an even wider audience through one buy. That's the other thing about direct buys, is if you're too small of a buy, there are just some advertisers who are, particularly regional, who are not going to think it's worth their time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could get them on like a few, somewhat popular sites in a given area, that's more compelling value proposition for them,
Mm-hmm.
because they're reaching it. It does cost money to do an individual ad buy. Some person is doing that for them at this
Mm-hmm.
point. It's still kind of, calling someone on the phone or sending an email.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that piece. There's the technology piece. Like everybody, Beehive and services like that make it super easy. But if you are, and so this is kind of changing a little bit, but yeah, all the people we were working with were on WordPress to start. And you're hosting your own WordPress site and getting 1 to 2 million or more page views per month. That there's complexity and there's stuff that you have to update the plugins, and like you need a theme that looks good but also is performant, so you can it doesn't take 5 minutes to load a page. So we have a custom WordPress theme that's fast and like also does other stuff with the events and the announcements. And the cost of that doesn't change whether I run it on one of my sites
Mm-hmm.
or three of my sites or three of my sites and three partner sites. And so there are economies of scale here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Same with the sales team, same with everything else. And
Mm-hmm.
at least on the regional level, the sales part, the tech part, there's no downside from the scaling of this operation. Now, I've only gotten into the regional part yet.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do this across multiple cities? I haven't gotten to the point where I've been confident that the answer to that is yes. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why we're in DC right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on it. I do think that there's an opportunity in other cities, where you have a few publishers who are doing good stuff. You're essentially pooling resources.
Yep.
I mean, that's what this is. It's a revenue share basis, and it's kind of just a pooling of resources. And collectively, you're able to, essentially share the cost. I mean, in reality, we're eating the cost and just making it up on the revenue share. But to be able to have increased capacity without increased costs
Mm-hmm.
is just good business.
Yeah.
So I think it's working out pretty well for everybody involved here, and it could work elsewhere. You just need enough of a critical mass of publishers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the challenge, is that they're just all sorts of different publishers doing all sorts of different things. We were able to standardize it to a degree. Maybe we got lucky, but we also, we had the audience. It's not going to work if someone's, doing 50,000 page views a month. That's not going to sell many ads, across a metro area. So you need people with the audience, and you need people who are willing to, maybe give up a degree of control and customization of what they're doing, so you can, standardize it and sell it across a region.
Yeah. Okay. So on the business side, so you're not charging these people anything. You're just taking a percentage of the ad sales that your team's making. That's the only way you make money from this.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's whatever revenue we can generate for them, and that's on the self-serve Content Hub side, and our reps going out and selling.
I see.
So
Okay.
we split revenue. It's we split on the gross revenue. So I don't try to net out my costs. I build that into the equation. So like if someone pays via credit card, there's 3%. If the sales rep sells it, there's some other percentage that's going out in terms of commission.
Mm-hmm.
The being able to be on our site, we're not trying to charge them a monthly fee for the hosting, even though hosting's not cheap.
Yeah.
And we're now we're paying web developers a retainer to continue to update our site. That all gets included in the overall cost. So I think it keeps things pretty well aligned. Once you start trying to nickel and dime different fees and stuff, it becomes harder to make it work and make decisions that are going to benefit everybody.
Yeah, totally. Now this is really interesting. I love what you're doing, Scott. This is so cool, and hopefully, I think people are going to find this really interesting, because again, I don't think most people who are in the local newsletter space, watching somebody like me and reading a lot of what's going on and come from Beehive and the Twitter thing. Your model is so different. I think people are going to be really interested. So hopefully we can do a follow up at some point.
I love what I love what everybody's doing in the newsletter space. Like, I just think you guys are doing some things so much better. Some of the marketing, some of the just the feel and branding. of the sites. Like I I envy it. I don't know how we pivot to getting. There's just a connection that I think you guys have. That we have a connection, but I think you guys have it on a different level. And I
Hmm.
think that you don't want to lose that. Whatever the next chapter is, I
Hmm.
think that is something to maintain. There's definitely stuff that this new wave of publishers is doing
Yeah.
that's better than what I'm doing. I don't see the path to get there myself. So I think
Hmm.
you got to be true. Be true to that branding and be true to the ethos that you have. But find ways to then expand upon that ring true to the audience. You can't be too precious about not doing things because it's not on brand. Like the programmatic, I was too precious about
Hmm.
that, and it ended up benefiting the audience because we were able to have more resources for the editorial.
Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, you guys are doing great stuff. I think that like eventually, as we've discussed, I think the operations that are truly built to last will end up looking a lot like mine in the end.
Yeah.
Um, so I think we're kind of doing the same things, just different approaches and different
Yep.
generations. And hope everybody keeps up what you're doing. And dude, it's a long-term thing. So
Yep.
people listening to this, maybe they're a year or two or less in. Um, it becomes a slog.
Mhm.
Producing content every day, getting up every day and doing this is a slog. But if you truly love it and you could at least maybe automate out some of the stuff that sucks, um, stick with it because once you've built getting the audience, it's just so hard. And if you have it, like just find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
I promise you, if you really have the audience and they're really engaged, it's going to happen.
Yep. Yep. And the way to do that is being human, being in the community, and giving people what they want in a way that nobody else can who's not there, which is where the competition is going to come from. So if you're doing that, I think some of the angles don't really matter. As long as people like you, it's what it always matters, right? Have people know, like, and trust you, right? If you have that, you're going to be golden. But that takes time, right? And that's why I think you said you got to have a long-term mindset. Again, I keep hitting on this. We talked about this yesterday. Long term, long term, long term. If you're in this for the short term, your odds of success are so low. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I've seen a lot come and go in the
Mhm.
space. There have been previous generations, that have started. Maybe they've started on Instagram or they've
Yep.
started, some other way. And you can tell the people who have the long term vision from people who are like, "Oh, this is fun."
Hmm.
Um, anything worth building, if you're going to do it in the long term, it's going to become a slog.
Yep.
You have to have passion for it, and you have to have the mindset that this is, something that I want to, you know, exist in 10, 20 years down the road.
Yeah, exactly. That truly is it. And I feel like even in the space, the people that I'm seeing in the communities that I'm in and on Twitter, you can tell the people who have that mindset, and I think they're all going to win. And you can also see the people who don't, who see it as this new opportunity, like, oh, I can just get people for cheap with Facebook ads, and it's like, yeah, but it's not going to work if you don't have a long-term mindset. So, yeah, hopefully people take that away, that this is coming up enough that they stop with the short-term mindset. But Scott, this has been great. Really, really appreciate it. Where can people find you if you want them to? Let them know.
Uh, thank, Thanks, CJ. This was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So at Scott Broadbeck on X.
Yeah.
I don't do as much tweeting now, but I do a lot of lurking. So
Okay. Yep.
definitely checking the mentions and following a bunch of people in the newsletter space. Maybe I'm already following someone who's listening to this.
Yep.
And then our company's name is Local News Now, lnn.co,
Okay.
and flagship site that people, if you want to check it out, arlnow.com, arlnow.com. All right. Cheers. Bye.